Up next, we bring you a speech by Louis Farrakhan, a leader of the Nation of Islam. He addresses participants of a meeting held by the group Blacks in Government.
It's so good that you've been so patient. We know that we've come a long ways. We have a long way to go. We know there are all kinds of atrocities that try to divide us. But we are glad that those of you stayed here united to show the power within the blackness that we all have. I'd like to introduce to you some members of our headgears, and I will start on my left. The chairman of the board, Mr. Oscar Eason. National Second Vice President, Mr. George White. And I won't tell you that Mr. White and some person up here is childhood buddies, but you might be able to figure it out. Our National President, Ms. Ruby S. Fields. Our special and most honored guest, Minister Louis Farrakhan. And also joining us are the brothers of the Nation of Islam. You've heard the preliminaries, you've sowed the seeds. The fruit is now born. It's time for us to reap the harvest. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce you, bring you the President of Blacks in Government, Ms. Ruby S. Fields, who will introduce our guest speaker, Ms. Fields.
Good morning, and here I go again. You know, Minister Farrakhan would have been on time this morning if America had still been using black labor and skills. But they choose to hire the new persons and the drug runners. So, further ado, and you know why, still the same old story, racism in America. I won't take too much of your time. The gentleman you're about to hear from today is one whose message is becoming more and more relevant to our times. As we have stated throughout this conference, the issue today is black survival. Whether we as a people will continue to accept the badge of slavery, or whether we will take those steps necessary to be free. If the other folks had not delayed with the messed up system they have in America, I would have read you the entire bio. But if you will look in your program on page 88, you can read it for yourself. I will not take up any more time. I will introduce and ask our special guest, Minister Farrakhan, to come forward.
In the name of Almighty God, Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, the Creator of all things, the Sender of all prophets, the Revealer of all scriptures, to Him alone do I submit and seek refuge. I thank Allah much, day in and day out, for giving to us a leader, teacher, and guide in the person of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. I greet all of you, my dear brothers and sisters, blacks in government, with the greeting words of peace in the Arabic language. Assalamu alaikum. To those of you who are unfamiliar with those words, they mean in English, peace be unto you. I thank you, Madam President, and to my lifelong friend, George White, to the Chairman of the Board, and to the members of Blacks in Government. Again, I thank you for the honor of this invitation to have the privilege of sharing a few words with you. I beg you to forgive us for being late. That is always the case with us. We don't seem to have much respect for time. But it certainly was not our fault. But I asked myself, why? Because one always wants to know why. We were in the air. I would have been here about a half hour early, and all of a sudden the pilot said, we're having a problem, no need to worry. He said, there seems to be a noise and we don't know where that noise is coming from. And he said that we are unable to pressurize the cabin because there must be a leak somewhere. Nothing serious. But we think we better turn back to Detroit. And you know, if they can't pressurize the cabin, they can't get up to the heights that a jet should get up to. And I thought that was interesting. And so when we got back to Detroit, I said, well, I wonder, am I to address this august body of brothers and sisters? But God knows best always. He tried my patience and yours. And so I thought I would begin my little talk with you on the lesson of patience. The Quran, which is the book of scripture of the Muslims, teaches us that Allah created us impatient. But God demands of us to be patient. Isn't that something? That we are created the exact opposite. of what God would desire us to be. Babies are not patient. If you don't feed me now, I will disturb your peace. If you don't change me now, I'll not only disturb your peace, but I will disturb the atmosphere. It takes a long time for us to mature to the point where we can delay gratification of personal desires and suffer as we work and wait to see the fulfillment of what we hope for and aspire to. God says in the Quran, for the sake of thy Lord, be patient. Because when God decrees a thing, his word is be, and it is. But between the be and the is, there's time, there's suffering, there's hardship, there's trial, there's tribulation. But give good news to those who are patient and steadfast under trial. Well, this morning we were patient. And I pray that the words that God guides me to speak to you will be worth waiting for. Countdown to year 2000. Will you be ready? What a significant theme for your, is it 11th or 13th? 11th year. Countdown to the year 2000. Will you be ready? I think we ought to start with why a countdown. What is so significant about the year 2000 that we're counting down to it? You know how they have a countdown when there's a rocket going up? T-10 and counting. We're approximately 11 years away from the year 2000. What do you expect in 2000, at the year 2000? What do you expect? What are you looking for? Blacks in government. What do you hope for? Will you be ready? Ready for what? What will you be ready for? You are the brothers and sisters who, with knowledge and scholarship, have moved into areas that your people are not able to become a part of. But as you moved into government, into many branches of service throughout this nation, you found the same evils that your people suffer under daily. And now you are feeling pangs. Pains of rejection, pains of exclusion, wanting to go places where you don't have the right color, though you have the qualifications. So when I read the program and when I read something of the history, I discerned from reading this program that you see blacks in government going backward rather than going forward. You see that maybe by the year 2000, you might need to be blacks out of government rather than blacks in government. Because even though you're in, you feel that you're out. Come on. So if the best of us, and that's you, the cream of the crop of us, that's you, are in yet out, what should you expect by the year 2000? And will you be ready? Ready for what? Let's look at this countdown. Now, Brother Farrakhan is a spiritual man. I know that many of us who have these high places, we lose a sense of spirituality. We go to church, but it's more for show, because it doesn't have the meaning for us that it used to have. And of course, when you are a black in government, it appears as though you're going to be secure for your life. Bless you. And I know you have a nice car, latest model, plenty of notes. I know you have a decent home in a nice neighborhood. You have children now growing up under you, looking at you. And your children are a lot different from you. Your children are not hoping to get a job in government because they know your struggle. Your children seem to reject the notion that being a black man or woman in government makes you better or secures you. They seem to sense your insecurity with the best jobs, because people don't look for the government to collapse. People, when they have a job in government, they say, this is great. I'm secure now. But in the countdown to the year 2000, we better look at that. Now, you that are spiritual but non-religious, I can understand that. Most of us are spiritual people, but we have lost contact with religion because religion does not seem to know how to contact the minds of those with higher aspirations, deeper intelligence, greater understanding of the world realities. Religion seems to be for poor folks. But my dear brothers and sisters, if you want to count down with me to the year 2000, then ask ourselves the question, will we be ready? I think the whole perspective on the theme will change. Let's look at it. Jesus said, you can discern by the redness in the sky that tomorrow it will be a good day. You can discern by the leaves falling from the trees that winter is on its way. But how come you cannot read the sign of the time? Count down to the year 2000. Jesus said, in the last days, listen now, not the last years, but the last days, perilous times will come. He said, there will be wars and rumors of war, kingdom rising against kingdom, nation against nation. There will be earthquakes in diverse places. There will be famine and pestilence, but these are the beginning of sorrows. Countdown to the year 2000. What do you expect in the year 2000? The wise religious scholars see the end of a world. The wise religious scholars read time and they say it is about time for that mighty one to reappear. And when he comes, they saw him coming in the clouds of heaven, having great power. What does he need great power for? Because he's coming to remove a world that is in power that doesn't deserve power. Countdown to the year 2000. Will you be ready? This is no little light talk. And this is no little light theme. Brothers and sisters, America is in trouble. She is in trouble not because she's good. She's in trouble because she has violated the very principles and laws that make a nation perpetual. Nations rise and nations fall when they violate certain principles and laws that God has laid down for our success. America is in deep trouble. She's wounded within. She has enemies without who don't have the power to hurt her. But her rot and her decadence from within is destroying her. Countdown to the year 2000. Will you be ready? Ready for what? Is it painful to you to see young people today committing acts of violence that have never been committed by youth at any time in the history of the world? Can't you discern that something of a great magnitude is happening around you? Are we so lost in the lust for more material things and pleasure that we cannot see the world in which we live closing down? The educational system of this country is in revolt against itself. It is a criminal educational system because it asks you to pay for something that you cannot use. If you were to go to a used car dealer to buy an automobile that had no motor in it, when you sat in it, you looked good behind the wheel. But when you try to turn the key, nothing happens, and you're just sitting in the same place. But you've given your hard-earned dollar to the used car dealer. What would you say? Liar, fraud, robber, thief. You go to the finest institutions of learning and you pay for an education that you cannot use to lift yourself and your people. You are only educated to serve your master at your master's pleasure, and when your master don't need you no more. You are a black man out of government without a job. And you don't know what to do if the white man lets you go. You don't know how to go for yourself. Count down to the year 2000. Will you be ready? Ready for what? Dear brothers and sisters, on the recent cover, I think it was Time magazine, they showed a picture of black suicide. When we were on the slave plantation, and I imagine it must have been pretty rough. We don't have a record of the slaves committing suicide. But with Cadillac cars and Mercedes-Benz and Gucci bags and alligator shoes and a small bank account, we are blowing our brains out because something is so wrong and we can't put our hand on it. We have graduated from the best that America has to offer with the highest degrees that they offer, but yet our knowledge is insufficient to insulate us from the adverse, hostile world in which we have to make a living and feed our families. So the pressure on our brains, the stress is so great that most of us who are the best of our people, you have a liquor cabinet at home. Filled with the latest. And you, the blacks in government, are drunk on the weekend. Sometimes through the week. You, the best of our people, sniffing cocaine here and there, mainly here. You, the best in government. We cannot trust you flying the planes. We can't trust you on the railroad. We can't trust you in your own automobile because you high. Your mind's messed up, insecure, full of stress and no ability to manage it. Count down to the year 2000. And this is the beginning of sorrow. What's next? He said. And then shall you be delivered up, betrayed by your own brother. To get advancement in government, many of us have to betray the confidence and trust of one another for a little advancement, appointment, and we think we're moving up. Very, 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 very sad, my dear brothers and sisters. There's a lot happening around you. We need you in government. We who are not in government, we need you. Because if you were strong and are strong, then maybe you can ease some of the pain on the less fortunate of our people. But you're in it and you know that it's rotten. You have to deal with its rottenness every day. Thurgood Marshall, our esteemed brother and jurist, an elderly man who does not have time to play. He has evolved and he's not worried about a job. He's not worried about security. He can tell the truth. And this esteemed jurist said that the Ku Klux Klan doesn't wear white anymore. He hinted that the Ku Klux Klan had traded in their white sheet for a black robe. And now government that should serve the best interests of the people is now turning back the hands of time, attempting to rewrite and obliterate the gains made by our esteemed leaders, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Whitney Young, Roy Wilkins, the brothers and sisters who struggled for civil rights in the 60s, who lost their lives. The country is not happy with black advancement. The country is not happy to see a black man say, I want to be president of the United States. The country seems to be more contented if they see us in our traditional role as a football player. Oh, here he is, the magnificent one. Look at his muscles. They like us as boxers. They like us as dancers, as singers, but they don't like us as thinkers, as planners. Because to deal with a black man and woman who thinks disturbs and distorts their mental picture of what a black person is or should be. Judge Alcee Hastings, a black man, a jurist, a brother who stands for us, it would appear. The government has a vendetta to get rid of him. Even though he won his case in court, he's now being tried in the Congress. And another black man, his own brother, himself a distinguished struggler for justice, is leading the charge against Judge Hastings. Let's get rid of them, put one strong one against another one so that the people become so confused they don't know what to do. It's the same old game. W.E.B. Du Bois against Marcus Garvey. Malcolm X and Elijah Muhammad against Martin Luther King and the other civil rights leaders. Now when they saw Jesse and Farrakhan, a student of Martin Luther King and a student of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, standing together, they couldn't stand that. So break it up. Have you been looking at the news lately? Every few minutes you read about or hear about or see blacks in gangs and drugs. Some of you have come from neighborhoods where you understood gangs. George and I grew up in Boston, We had groups of young people that hung out together, but we never referred to ourselves as a gang. But it is natural for young people at a certain age to leave the home and find their peers in the school or on the block where they live, and they form themselves together into groups, and parents try to break them up sometimes. But the children are loyal to their companions. Huh? You sisters, women are not like men and men are not like women. Men have a certain nature that expresses itself in our youth in physical terms. Whoever the strongest is among us, whoever the most prolific is in terms of our ability to fight, becomes the leader. White folks know this. Social scientists know this. Psychologists know this. But in the white community where there's money, they work off their aggression, their macho, with a little league. Little league basketball, little league baseball, little league football, police athletic league. Come on, let's get in the ring, so you work it off there. And you guide it, you direct it, you nurture it into valuable characteristics that can later be used for the good of government and the good of a nation. But in the black community, when you don't have any police athletic league, you don't have any little league, you don't have any money, then the aggressive tendency can be manipulated by outside forces that seek the destruction of our community and our youth. Let me talk to you about government. Now, I don't mean to hurt any feelings. But if I am a liar, then let me be condemned. But if I speak the truth, and somebody has to have the courage today to speak the truth, if I speak it, then let me be. For you shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. The government for which you work is the #1 enemy of the black man of America and the world. Listen to me. Don't get frightened. If you get frightened, then go and get some water. Or call your boss to deal with me. Because he's going to have to deal with me sooner or later. Now, I'm going to say that again in case someone thought I might have said something differently. The United States government is the worst enemy of the black man and woman of America and the world, and our legitimate aspiration for freedom, justice, and equality. Now remember, brothers and sisters, see, you didn't come here on the Mayflower. You didn't come here on the Nina, the Pinta, nor the Santa Maria. Your fathers came here in the holds of ships. You didn't come here seeking any freedom. You were brought here to be the burden bearers of aristocracy. You didn't come here, or you weren't brought here to be in government. You were brought here to be in the house or in the field, not in government. A part of government, yes. You can govern the kitchen according to how I dictate the menu. And you the same today. They dictate the menu. You cook it. And if you can't see that you are being used to sell a lie to your people, that there is some upward mobility for black people in this country, and that is the worst lie that could be told. You can't move up, so how can the masses of your people move up? You are suffering inside to tell the lie to them that they got a chance. When your chances are dwindling, how then can they have a chance? The government. Let's talk about it. No, I'll talk about it. And I want you to know that blacks in government have no part in what I say. The comments are mine. And they didn't know what I was going to say. And I hope they won't be sorry that that I was invited. I love you. And because I love you, I cannot hold back the truth, even if it costs me my life. My life is not more important than the truth, and my life is not more important than the liberation of our people. So it's a small thing to give your life for something bigger than yourself. The truth is the biggest thing in the world. Greater men than I have lost their lives because of it. And many more have been freed because someone was willing to die for the truth. The government of the United States bases her whole argument for government on the Constitution, which most blacks in government have to uphold. It is a magnificent document. Unfortunately, those who wrote it weren't thinking about an America where there would be blacks, Hispanics, Asians, Arabs. They weren't thinking like that. Their vision of America was a great nation for white people. We happen to have been here. And the founding fathers were, in fact, slave owners. So when they said, we the people, you know, they didn't mean you people. I know what you're saying. Times have changed. It's not the same now. Brothers and sisters, I know the dumbest of us don't believe that. And some of us can act pretty dumb at times, but I don't think any of us is that dumb. Now, of course, if we were not included in the original thinking of the framers of the document, then in order to include us, they had to make an amendment, but that was on paper. But in order to really include us, they would have to amend their thinking. And that they are unwilling to do. So a nigger was, a nigger is, and in their mind by the year 2000, a nigger shall continue to be, but not so. There's something new on the scene today. Countdown to the year 2000. No, no, no. You are not going to be that by the year 2000. Will you be ready? Man. Here is a government that gave us law, but we, even to this very moment, can have the best case. But if it is not in accord with what they wish for us, we can't get justice. From the basic law, they had religion even before the law. And the religion justified blacks as servants, blacks in government as what? Servants. Civil servants. In olden times, they would say house niggers. Civil servants. Now, please don't be hurt. Don't be offended. Don't be offended. Because some of the toughest brothers and sisters were in the house. That's how we got a little bread back out in the field. Somebody in the house would steal a few things, you understand? I don't mean that you should do anything like that. But I'm only stating a fact of yesterday and its ratio and proportion, relatively speaking, to today. Religion, as I was talking to some esteemed Catholic priests this week, and I mentioned Reverend Stallings. And I said, you all don't seem to like Reverend Stallings. I said, what has the good Reverend done wrong? The Reverend understands that there is a need in black people for cultural identity with themselves. So the brother wanted to take the doctrine of the church and include in it, integrate into it, if you will, that which would make it culturally acceptable to black people, where we could find truer expression. And for that, we don't like it. So I said to the esteemed priests, I said, fathers, I said, you have been white all your lives. And you have gloried in your whiteness. And you have not allowed us the privilege of glorying in what God made us. You wanted us to glory in what he made you and wish that it was so for us. Listen. So you fixed religion in a demonic way to serve white supremacy. You didn't hear me, did you? I said, how dare you misinterpret the scripture and call black people the son of Ham. Ham, the rebellious son of Noah, who mocked Noah's nakedness and drunkenness according to the Bible, and Noah cursed him and God upheld his curse. So we were told that Ham was doomed to be a hewer of wood and a drawer of water. And so we, by being called Hamitic people by the anthropologists, are now doomed to be the servants of white people or other people for the rest of our lives. I said that is a demonic misrepresentation of the scripture, for I and my people are no son of nobody named Ham, some Johnny come lately from from Noah. I said before Noah was, I am. Before Abraham was, I am. Before Adam was, I am. And I challenge any white anthropologist, geneticist, mathematician, historian to go find the birth record of the black man. And if you cannot find our birth record, and you cannot, then how dare you assign our blackness to some divine curse to justify misusing us? And it was quiet. I said, we have to assert our blackness today, not because that is what we want to do. It is what we need to do in order to grow properly. You must learn to love who you are, what you are. Then you must learn to grow beyond the physical into the spiritual, which is the real human being. For as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Not his color, but as he thinks. But if you don't know this, you learn the inside starting from the outside. So Elijah Muhammad said, I've got to start by teaching my people the knowledge of who they are. Once they know themselves, then they will fall in love with themselves. Then they will come into unity. The unity will give them power. Count down to the year 2000. Will you be ready? The government of America has been and is so frightened of the potential of black unity. Why, this organization here is a threat, because you all are supposed to be the privileged ones, but 11 years ago, someone had the vision to say, let's get together and exert pressure on this body to see if we can get improvement for all blacks in government. That was a brilliant move, but I'm sure it was attended by great opposition. Some saying, oh, why do you need that? You don't need that. And when blacks come into government, they're told about this organization and not to be a part of it. I bet you. Is that right? Most of you have been in government a long time. Where are the new ones? How many of you just got into government? Raise your hand. See that? That's what I'm talking about. And it's the same on the police force. It's the same in the firemen. Wherever there was black unity to eke out more justice. Now when blacks come into the police force, they're told, stay away from the Guardians, stay away from the Afro-American Police Society, stay away from these people. And I'm sure they're saying, stay away from blacks in government. They're troublemakers. And if you want to move up, you don't want to get near those people. Is that what they say? I mean, am I lying, or do I know them? Okay. Bear with me just a couple more minutes. You waited this long. I really got to give you your money's worth. Now look, it is easy to amend the Constitution. That's just a piece of paper. It's much more difficult to amend the condition that slavery produced. Think about it. And that condition has not been amended yet. Education hasn't amended it. Religion, as it is preached, has not amended it. But every time we got a leader who really addressed a basic need for truth, what did the government do to that leader? Come on. Let's go back and check the record. How did the government treat Booker T. Washington? They seemed to like Booker T. Booker T was smart. Booker T knew that white folk loved to see blacks working with their hands. Booker T used their own ego in a wise way and established Tuskegee by saying, drop your buckets down where you are, meaning go to the earth, black man, because freedom will come to you when you got a right mind and some earth under your foot. But we didn't hear Booker T because we wanted to get off the farm. So we left the land, and our people sold the land, and they're saying that by the year 2000, black people will be absolutely landless. And when you don't have any land, you don't have anything to build a true political reality upon. Let's look at this. E.B. Du Bois came along and said, well, let's have the talented 10th. Let's get educated in the sciences and the humanities. Now that man was smart. W.E.B. Du Bois suffered, didn't he? I just left Ghana, where they took his body up from the place where they had it, and in Africa they built a beautiful tomb to enshrine the remains and the memory of our beloved brother, William E.B. Du Bois. But there's no memorial for him here. But he worked for us. He died in Africa, where Marcus Garvey was beckoning him to, developing the history of the black nation, but he was run out. He was vilified. He was maligned because he dared to speak truth to black people. What about Paul Robeson? Paul was a good man. Huh? He died in Philadelphia, a broken-hearted recluse, because all his life he played football, he sang, he was a brilliant scholar, but his heart beat for the freedom of black people. Yes, he went to Russia, and he was loved by the Russians, accepted by the Russians. Like most black artists found more acceptance in Europe than in America, so they made Europe their home. But Paul Robeson couldn't stay there. He had to come back to share with us that there is a world beyond the Cotton Curtain. And so they called him a communist. They stoned him. And we rejected him because the government did not like him. The government. The government. Do you remember Marcus Garvey? Today, it's fashionable to say, oh yes, Mr. Garvey, a brilliant man. But Mr. Garvey was the most successful of all black leaders with the masses of our people. Garvey had a vision. Garvey spoke truth. The government said, we can't have this. We have got to stop Garvey. So they trumped up charges against him, brought him into court, deported him, broke his movement. Now, of course, the truth could come out. Garvey's dead and gone, no more problem. What about Adam Powell? Have you forgotten him? He was a premier black in government, moving up in Congress, right? Into seniority, wasn't he? A brilliant spokesperson for our hurt, wasn't he? He wasn't dependent on the white man to appoint him. See, he was elected out of Harlem so he could return over and over again. He was an independent black man. Therefore, they said, we've got to move on him. And they got one of us, trumped up little charges, and broke him. And there wasn't too much outcry from us. When they get ready to lynch us, I'm talking about the government, the rest of the blacks in government do this. Because you're scared for your job. So you go off in the corner and say, isn't it a shame what they're doing to some? It's awful. Shh. And boy, you know it's right. Now, Martin Luther King Jr. was a man that sought to make America sane. Martin Luther King Jr. did more to preserve America than any of their own leaders, for Martin Luther King fought to bring a just balance in this country. And wherever justice prevails, you will find perpetuity. That was a good man. But even under John Kennedy, while they were sitting down talking to him in the White House, they were bugging his telephone, spying on him. Because they made him, through the television, a very big man, and they wanted to make sure that he used his influence in the proper way. You see, when they make you, they want to make you for them and not for yourself or your people. Do you hear me? So Martin Luther King, who is a deeply committed spiritual man and one of our most brilliant sons, Martin King saw the war in Vietnam as sucking vital monies from the so-called war on poverty. So he made a principled stand against something that the government was saying to the American people was all right. Let's fight them gooks, them chinks in Vietnam. The Vietnamese had never done anything to you. Yet we, 10% of the population, were 35% of the casualties. Because white folk factor in your population growth, and they have determined they're not going to produce jobs for black men. Therefore, black men either sell drugs, get into criminal activity, or join the army to be what they could never be in the society. This is all calculated by government. Listen carefully now. I know it don't sound good, but the government is not good. The government didn't like Martin Luther King. J. Edgar Hoover called him to Washington, called him a notorious liar, and threatened Dr. King that if he continued, they were going to reveal certain things in his personal life to his wife. Did you hear me? You all know these things, don't you? But Martin Luther King told Mr. Hoover, you do what you have to do. I must do what I have to do. And it wasn't long, Martin King was shot to death. And of course, they had an investigation. They always do. They had a fair hearing, of course. They always do. The wicked are not fools. They have to justify their evil. So they said the government was not involved. That is a lie. The government is involved. The government is responsible for the murder of Martin Luther King Jr., and the government is responsible for the murder of Malcolm X. You don't have to applaud. This is who you work for. You work for the biggest criminals in the world. You work for them. You uphold them. You seek justice from a handful of criminals who have put your people all over the world into hell and misery and poverty and want to keep up a way of life in America that they will allow a few of you to share so you can uphold their criminal policies. I got to warn you, because tomorrow you may not get to the year 2000 if you keep up this madness against the rise of your own self and your own people for the crumbs that fall from your master's table. Malcolm X was murdered by black people, supposedly members of the Nation of Islam. But if you ever read the Senate subcommittee hearings on the counterintelligence program of the U.S. government under J. Edgar Hoover, it will give you a great education. This is documented. This is not something Farrakhan is making up. You can go and get a copy of the Senate subcommittee hearings on the counterintelligence program of the U.S. government. And in their document, they write all the dirty tricks that the CIA uses to destabilize governments in the world. They brought all of those tricks home and used them to destabilize every black organization and leader to keep a black messiah from rising up among you that could unify you and move you toward your aspirations of true freedom, justice, and equality. It was the government that destroyed the Panther Party. It was the government that weakened the NAACP, the Urban League, CORE, SNCC, put leader against leader. Go read it for yourself. They set stool pigeons and spies into our organizations to disrupt them. And I don't doubt that they have a hand-picked group among blacks in government. Their job is to always sound like they're for the program, but they always undermine everything that the leadership is trying to set up for your advancement. They're right here. So you have had 11 presidents in 11 years, and you've had 11 people that have caught hell in trying to serve blacks in government, because there are those among you who don't ever want to see you agree on anything that will move you forward in government. Drawing near our conclusion, the government is so frightened that they thought they had killed off all our leaders. Whitney Young died under strange circumstances off the coast of Africa. Medgar Evers gone, Martin gone, Malcolm gone, Elijah Muhammad gone. His movement turned totally upside down, inside out. The people that used to support the NAACP, the Urban League, the white philanthropists, they pulled back their money. And these organizations were weakened from within. And now, under Reagan, and now Mr. Bush, a conservative Supreme Court is being put in place. And if Justice Marshall passes anytime soon, another conservative will be appointed, younger person, to ensure that those policies of Reagan and Nixon will move down the pike for years, even though Mr. Nixon opened up government a lot for blacks in terms of business. Carter did a lot. But what is it for? What is their aim? What is their rationale? See, you, brothers and sisters, beloved, you got to try and understand what motivates your enemy. I'll close with that. But my brothers and sisters, as we move toward the year 2000, white folk are looking. They thought they had killed the Messiah. They thought they had destroyed our organization, which they did. But they didn't know that they were making us wiser. As we were going down, we were learning to come up again stronger than ever. And now, brothers and sisters, here's the real threat. Most of you in this group appear to be in your 30s, 40s, 50s, some in the 60s. But from 34 to 60 in that area. The young, the real young, are not here. The demographers are studying the birth rate, and they have concluded that if whites continue their decline in birth, they will reach zero population growth, meaning for every one that dies, one is born by the year 2000. Isn't that something? Statutes, which I give you this day, cursed shall you be in the city, cursed shall you be in the country. Cursed shall be your basket and your store. Cursed shall be the fruit of your womb and the fruit of the ground. Count down to 2,000. Whites dwindling in power all over the world. America becoming grayer and grayer and more gray. I'm talking about here. older. So now it ain't black or white power, it's gray power. The demographers are looking. They feed most of you the pill, so you don't have to worry. Takes the worry out of being close. It bans the babies and keeps you from being a mom. Raise your hand if you're sure. No. Well, a little laughter is always good. You know? It helps to ease the castor oil down a little better. But seriously, brothers and sisters, you are not having the children. But God is so wise, you know. You notice they're feeding the cattle all of these hormones. You don't know what they're doing. George knows. They're fattening these fellas up, you know. Get them to the market quick, make more money. And we eat it. All of a sudden at 9-year-old, our babies have breasts, having their menses. I mean, our girls are big at 10, at 11, at 12, where some of you had your menses at 14 or 13 or 15 or even 16. The girl have a doll in her hand and is asking her mother, what is happening? So the babies are now having babies. Huh? So the demographers say if this keeps up, by the year 2083, less than 100 years from now, blacks will be predominant. Just love power. Will make us the majority. Now just picture Ollie North. You know that fellow that shredded documents and lied to the Congress and sold drugs, you know, to get money, to give it to the Contras. And he's given community service. You know who I'm talking about. Imagine the patriots, the racist patriots, seeing in less than 100 years, blacks will outnumber whites. The average age of black people in America is 27 years, young and strong. White folks say, we have got to put a stop to this. We can't control them with education because they're not going to school. We can't control them with jobs because we're losing jobs. So we'll send drugs into the communities. Now you look, some of you are here from Chicago, from Boston, Massachusetts, and from Washington, D.C. Georgetown used to be black. But what happened? They just moved us out, let old buildings just die, sent young people to torch them. They create gangs. They use our own natural desire to be together in a group. Then they feed us guns, make us kill each other so the decent people flee the neighborhood. Then they keep boarding up more and more homes. Then white folks, developers move in, develop the property for white people and put you out in the suburbs so that they can take back the cities and the power in the cities. Now you listening? Let me take it back in terms of political power. In Chicago, in the Woodlawn section, the gang at that time was the Blackstone Rangers. The Blackstone Rangers were given guns and drugs. You got it? When they began shooting at each other, the decent folk went out, white folk came back in. Now that area is turning white again. It's happening in Massachusetts. It's happening in Washington. It is happening in Maryland. It is happening all over America. It's a plan. Young black men, strong, powerful, and different. You notice every night on the news, blacks, gangs, and drugs. What is the government after? Pharaoh said, let's deal wisely with them, lest they multiply and join on to an enemy of ours and come against us. And what was Pharaoh's plan? Kill all the boy babies, spare the female. See all the females in government? Check it out. Where are the men? You mean we ain't got no men that can think? We don't have no men that can work? Sure we do. But they feel that they can satisfy the requirement of the law by getting a minority and a woman and putting your black man out on the street, so many of you women are taking care of your black men. And that's a shame. That's a shame. You make more money than your husbands. So it's hard for your husband to have any voice around the house. What did you say? And that's why you all have a lot of domestic problems. He's living in your mouth like a dentist with no credentials. His manhood is being stripped every day in this society, and now you're taking the last vestige of it away by coming home with the big check and saying, baby, we're not going to get that. We're going to do this. You understand? No wonder he's turning strange. Poor black man today, he's in bad shape. He don't know where to go. He can't cope with his black woman. She's intelligent. She's aggressive. She got money. She's independent. So he says, well, to heck with it. Now, brothers and sisters, anybody in that shape or condition, I'm not condemning you. I'm just stating some facts. I think we ought to close this now before I wear out my welcome. But look, brothers and sisters, they put the drugs in our community, and now they put Uzis, AK-47s, and these new weapons that they call street sweepers, which shoot 12 rounds of shotgun pellets in 3 seconds. Our young people got these weapons. Now, you know we don't manufacture these things. The Uzi is made in Israel. The AK-47 is made in China. I don't know where the street sweeper is made, but we got the weapon. They give us drugs, and now the macho thing is turned into colors, you see? You wear this color, the blue, all over here. You got red. You a blood. I'm a Crip. And we're taking each other off over dope. Now listen to the words of the police department. We are only allowed to have 38s. We can't deal with the drug thing. It's really getting out of hand. The television comes and they visit the neighborhood, and the parents say, I don't know what to do. There was shooting here the other day, and an innocent child got killed. For God's sakes, you must do something about the gangs. Then one of our black city councilmen says, bring in the National Guard. And then Bush moves Colin Powell into place. Now that's a brilliant brother. He's a black in government. No, I'm not being funny. He's a good man, a brilliant man, but they don't move nobody into position like that unless they got an idea or a plan to use him. Now let me show you what they have in mind. They're planning a move on the black communities. They sold our people Uzis, and they have weapons right now in Washington that move down the street at 70 miles an hour. It cannot work in any theater of war because every theater of war has anti-tank weapons that can destroy armored personnel carriers. But these are armored vehicles that couldn't take heavy fire but could withstand anything that they've given our young, crazy children to make them think they got something now. What is the idea behind it? Crush black youth. Destroy the future of our people. Don't think it can't happen in America. You just saw what happened in Tiananmen Square, and you should watch President Bush's weak reaction to what happened in China. It is because he's planning the same thing in America with our babies. You can take it or let it alone, brother and sister. I'm not afraid to say what I'm saying. Take me to court. Bring me before your Congress. You can't stand the heat of what God has for you. Count down to 2,000. Let me tell you something in conclusion. These people intend your and my destruction. And the blacks in government are placed there to be apologists for this bureaucracy that is destroying your people. Have you heard of the Tuskegee experiment? You did. Where they infected 100 black men with the most virulent form of syphilis, allowed them to have sex for years, spreading the disease among our people. Did you hear in 1961 a supposed polio outbreak? And they asked everybody to take a polio vaccine? In 1960, cancer was a white man's disease. In 1989, cancer is eating up the black community. How did it happen in less than 30 years? Tell me. They were supposed to be inoculating us with SV40 or with a polio vaccine that was called SV40, which was later found to be a polio contaminant which gave millions of Americans cancer. Now, AIDS. They say a green monkey bit somebody in the backside. You believe that? Public Enemy says, don't believe the hype. The people in Central Africa are neither homosexuals nor intravenous drug users, but AIDS is spreading like wildfire in Central Africa, and if you look in America, it is predominantly black people, black women, black babies. What's going on? Count down to the year 2000. Not will you be ready, will you be here? You put your trust in your enemy to feed you. You don't even look at the labels to see what chemical death is being prepared for you. He don't mind getting a few of his own to get to you, to maintain power. Let me close. White folk recognize that this is the setting sun of Western civilization. This is the end. By the year 2000, it is written in the scriptures of both the Bible and the Quran that major change will take place in the world, and that's the white man going down and out of power. You don't have to accept it, but just keep your eyes open and watch. They gave our people freedom in Africa. You don't give freedom. Then they turn around through the CIA, through Mossad and Western intelligence, and destabilize African governments, and then come back and tell you, I told you that you people can't rule or run nothing. The International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, sucking the blood of third world nations in the name of loaning them money. How in the heck can you loan back to the poor what you already robbed them of and then ask them to pay interest on what you stole from them? Criminals. Now they're doing the same thing to you in government. Dick Hatcher, what a wonderful man. Mayor of Gary, the moment he became mayor, they moved the tax base out from under him. Gone to a little town called Maryville, and we watched Gary die. And they say, well, you see, he's a black man, been there 12 years. Well, you know, I mean, niggas just can't do anything. That's the truth. The mayor of East St. Louis, Carl Officer. You might have seen him on ABC's Nightline, where they made the brother look foolish. He's a good brother. He's a good brother, as good as we can be in this world. But they want, white folk want the eastern side of the Mississippi, right across from St. Louis, to make it a paradise. And in order to do that, they got to get blacks out of there. So, I mean, East St. Louis has become nothing. And a black man sitting up over it, so they say, I told you. See? Blacks can't run nothing. Mayor Harold Washington, did he run it? That brother ran it. Unfortunately, he died in office. That's a good word. May very well be true. They got the brothers squabbling with each other. Now Daley's in power. He comes to Washington, get exactly what he wants. See? The white boys look out for each other. Do you know what time it is? See? See? Brother jumped up and said it's reparation time. I got it here. 40 acres, $50 and a mule with interest. Now look, what do you mean reparations? Reparation means that if this government could pay something to the Japanese for stripping them of their properties and putting them in concentration camps for maybe 3 or 4 years. And the government said, yes, 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 we're so sorry. We did make a mistake. You know they owe it to us. You know they worked our fathers for 300 years, night and day, for nothing. You know they owe it to us. When they set us free, they never intended for us to be free. They wanted us to come right back and work for them for little or nothing. You know they owe it to us. We fought in every war to give them the right to be free and powerful, but we came back to America to the same old conditions. You know they owe it to us. If they killed all our leaders that would amend the condition of slavery, what do they owe us? They really owe it all to us. And so, I thank you so much for inviting me. I hope that you will be ready. Ready means you got to have a knowledge of preparedness, what to prepare for. You got to watch what you put in your mouth. You got to watch what goes into your stomach. You got to watch what goes into your head if you want to be ready. I am not saying that you should flee government, but I'm saying that there's enough blacks in government if we united behind the leadership of those who head the organization, we could exert certain pressure to bring about change. You have the potential power, but the right of self-determination is the requirement of the year 2000. You can't think anymore about serving your master. You must think now of serving yourself and your people. You must send your children to get education, but tell them if you want to be ready for the year 2000, don't come out looking for a job. Come out prepared to create a job. If you want to be ready, if you want to be ready for the year 2000, you must master the knowledge of you. You must stop thinking of being other than who God made you. Yeah. You got to fall all the way in love with you. You listening? When you know yourself, then you can take anything you learn and you can relate it to self, and coming through self, you will build institutions for self. And this is why Jews are respected, even if they're not loved, because their cultural unity has allowed them to maximize their dollars. Did you hear me? And if there's a Jewish dentist and you happen to need a problem, he can have a problem rather, he can send you to a Jewish doctor. And if you go to the Jewish doctor and you have a mental problem, he can send you to a Jewish psychiatrist. And if you're in trouble with the law, he can send you from there to a Jewish lawyer. And if you need a judge to fix a thing, he can bring you to a Jewish judge. And if you need somebody to give you a suit, he can send you to a Jewish clother. And if you need some shoes, he can send you to a Jewish man to shod your foot. If you need clean chickens, he can send you to the kosher store, for his brother got that too. If you need circulation and distribution for your paper or your product, come on to him. He said, I'll circulate your paper. I'll distribute your product. If you got talent and you want me to make you, come on. I own the record companies. If you want to make a movie, write your script, but give it to me and I'll make your movie. I may be small, but I run the world. And here you are, 30 to 40 million people with a gross income of over $230 billion a year, and you're scratching where you don't itch, bending and bowing and scraping when you could walk tall on the earth if you knew how to be ready for the year 2000. Will you be ready? I hope so. Thank you for listening as I greet you in peace. Assalamu alaikum. Oh, by the way, brothers and sisters, I know you're rushing to get out. But if you would like the tape of what was said, so you can kind of steal away and ease on down the road and give it to a fellow brother or sister to help them understand what's going on. Are they mass producing the tapes now? They're right outside where? Where? Right at the door in the lobby? What's the price of the tape? The title. May Allah bless you. You can get the tape on the way out. God grant you a safe return to your homes, to your families, to your people. Let's get ready for countdown to the year 2000. Thank you and God bless you.
That concludes this address by Louis Farrakhan. You can see this program again later this evening at approximately 3:15 a.m. Eastern Time. Check for our periodic schedule updates for the exact air time. After this short break, we'll bring you this week's edition of Book Notes featuring author Bruce Murray, who wrote a book titled Journey in Space.
As a service to schools,